Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this special edition of the For Your Scenes Fire American Soccer Show as we're going to review the first leg of the quarterfinals of the 2026 CONCACAF Champions Cup. My name is Daniel Feuerstein. Thank you for joining me tonight. And as always, you can follow me and my fellow writers over at Beyond the 90, at beyondthe90.substack.com, and locally on New York Soccer over at BadDogSports.com. The chat room is open here on YouTube right there. Talk amongst yourselves if you like. If you have a question for me, I'll try to answer it the best of my abilities. And please don't forget to subscribe here for your daily American soccer content. As we talk about some of these games that were played in the quarterfinals, and it's not just the quarterfinals, actually. If you really think about it, it's the round of 16. And we're seeing, again, why if you're an MLS club and you go down to Mexico against a Liga MX club, why is it those clubs in Mexico are finding success these days in the Champions Cup? Well, look, that was broached on social media, and for me, look, that's a great question. Why is it that MLS clubs can't seem to get the results they need when they're down in Mexico? Now, obviously, we have seen clubs go into Mexico, whether it be in the quarterfinals, the semifinals, even the round of 16 before that, and they're able to go down there and they're able to find a way to get a win, or at least a result in their favor. I can definitely tell you, when the New York Red Bulls were in the CONCACAF Champions League at that time, 2018 it was, they played in the opening round at that time. They played in the opening round, which was the round of 16. They were facing Club Deportivo Olimpia from Honduras. They got a 1-1 draw away, and unfortunately the match couldn't be played in Honduras because at the time it was political unrest, and they had to play that match in Costa Rica at the national team stadium in San Jose, Costa Rica. Then they came back to Red Bull Arena, now Sports Illustrated Stadium, and of course Red Bulls beat them 2-0 after going 1-1 in the first leg, because the away goal was the important goal. You needed that away goal. And then their next round of matches was in the quarterfinals as they took on Club Tijuana, the Cholos. Now, the first leg was down in Mexico. And, regardless of what you may think or regardless of what you may believe in and everything else going on, it's just been, you wondered like what their mentality would be. And they went out there down in Tijuana against the Zolos, and they actually found a way to win. And it doesn't matter, it doesn't really matter, what position they are in the standings or on the table in Liga MX. It didn't really matter. As long as, they're going to find a way to beat you, and they will, that they're going to find a way to do it. And in the first leg down in Mexico, it was 2 goals by Bradley Wright Phillips. It was a clean sheet from the club and Luis Robles, and they went home with a 2-goal advantage and a 2-goal away goal advantage. And then they came back to the home stadium. And even though they conceded the opening goal, they equalized in the first half afterwards. And then they got 2 to 3 more goals in the second half. And that was it was a 3-1 victory 5-1 on aggregate, and then they moved on to play Guadalajara Chivas. And Chivas is a better team than Club Tijuana, obviously. Chivas knows how to win in these types of tournaments. And even though they only coughed up one goal at the Estadio Akron in Guadalajara, Chivas basically bunkered in on by their penalty area, and they found a way to do it. They found a way to basically win the series. They didn't cough up a goal at Red Bull Arena. They got their one goal. They didn't have to get an away goal because all the pressure was on the Red Bulls to equalize the aggregate. And then they went on to win the CONCACAF Champions League that year, Guadalajara, as they defeated Toronto in Toronto in the first leg, then lost by the same score line as they beat Toronto, which it was all 2-1 on both sides, I believe it was. And it ended 3-3 in regulation, and they went to penalty kicks, and Guadalajara won it in Mexico. So you see, the truth is that Liga MX clubs, they are better than MLS clubs because why? Because number one, there's no salary cap. There's no extreme salary cap down in Mexico. That's number one. Number two, tactically, I think the clubs in Mexico in this region are better than the MLS clubs on the international level. I mean, you hope for a run, you hope for something great to happen, and you want to see them finally lifting that trophy since the Sounders did it several years ago. But, when you go down to play clubs in Mexico for Liga MX, they have, they're tactically a bit better. You can't lie about this. I don't want to lie to you. I'm here to tell you the truth. I'm not here to lie to you. I'm here to tell you what the reality of the situation is. And at the same time, there's more emotion down there. There's filled stadiums, obviously. But tactically, that's the advantage. That is the major advantage. All these things with designated players, discovery players, the GAM, the TAM, what does that do to help Major League Soccer become better? What does it do for them? It only does something inside our nation. Only inside when you play the Open Cup. I don't count Leagues Cup, like I've told you many, many times. That is a wasted effort. It should never have been created. Because the Champions Cup is the real tournament for the clubs in this region. If we are going to really challenge clubs from Mexico, from Liga MX, MLS needs to do better, and they need to start reducing these roster rules, the payment rules, the acronyms need to be taken off. It's time to sign these players the money that they deserve, and at the same time, it's time to stop holding ourselves back. Because if we continue to hold ourselves back, Mexico and Liga MX clubs will continually win the Champions Cup. And look, what are you going to do? That's why when they come up here in the first leg or after the first leg, they play for the draw. They know how to play for the draw. In MLS in the United States or in Canada. When you go down to Mexico, they let you have it. It's all tactics. Look what Tigres did to Cincinnati. Yeah, they complained about the plane ride. They complained about this. They complained about that. They wanted to show how unhappy they were with, the traveling situation. But in reality, that's probably a ruse. And that's why I'm mad at Pat Noonan for what he did in the second leg down in Mexico against Tigres. You allowed yourself to get destroyed. And even though you scored the away goal after coughing up a 3-0 lead on aggregate, and then Tigres gets those 4 goals, 2 early in the first half, 2 more early in the second half, and then you finally get the away goal to put yourselves ahead. You're level on the aggregate, but the away goal helped you to move on to the next round. And then what happened? You don't know how to defend, and you don't know how to waste the clock, and you don't know how to get to the freaking corner. And then when you knew you're going to keep on holding on that stuff, and you allow them to get that goal, honestly, that's nobody's fault but Cincinnati's. And that was nobody's fault but Pat Noonan's and his players, because they should have done better. They should have done better. That is the type of hope and praying tactical awareness that you cannot have when you have a 3-0 lead. Your mindset and the mentality should have been attack, attack, attack. Do not let them get anything. Look, if they score a goal, fine. You're still up by 2. Oh, they scored another goal. Now you're only up by 1, and now you're panicking. Oh my God, now they've leveled it. Oh my God, now they're ahead. Oh my goodness, we got the away goal. It is ours for the taking. Why are you all of a sudden playing like this? Why are you all of a sudden just banging the ball around for no reason? Why can't you just get it out of there? You know how much stoppage time there is. The board is lit up, 7 to 8 to 9, 10 minutes of second half stoppage time. You got to go in there and you got to know what to do in that situation. And that's why, as I'm being fair here, we lack the awareness of where we're supposed to be in this game. We are lacking the pressure to perform and to cough it up. You cannot do that in this tournament. No matter how many times you've qualified for the Champions Cup, no matter how many times you've probably gone as far as the final, as far as the semis, when you have to perform each and every round, first leg, second leg, it does not matter. The consistency needs to be better. You can do whatever you want on American soil or on Canadian soil. It's when you get down to Mexico on Mexican soil, that's when you screw it up. When you royally screw it up, you're going to suffer. And that's what Tigres did. And that's what Cruz Azul has done. And that's what Guadalajara has done. And that's what Monterrey has done. And that's what Santos Laguna has done. It does not matter. What matters is you got to hold your nerve, keep it, and don't lose your head. When it comes to international cup competition, if you're a national team player, fine, you're doing the right thing. But you're talking about players who either were not playing international games, either international club level or international national team level. You got to know what you have to do. And you cannot lose your head. You lose your head, you lose the game. And Cincinnati showed it. Cincinnati proved it. Cannot lose your head. And when you do, it's over. And then you're going home with your head down and you're flying back in disgrace. This is why Mexican clubs do tactics better, regardless of where the coaches are from, whether they're from Mexico, from South America, or Central America, whatever, doesn't matter. They will find a way. They will find a way and they will beat you. And if you don't play the way you should, it's over. And that's how the Seattle Sounders did it. Now, granted, that Pumas team was not great, but it didn't matter. You play down there, you got to win down there. San Diego FC actually did that when they played Pumas in the second leg down in Mexico, and they did a great thing. But then again, better competition came. Better competition came. And so all I can say is that these teams have to be much, much better when they are playing in the CONCACAF Champions Cup against Liga MX. I mean, there are still some good teams in Central America, but when you face these teams in the Caribbean, they're not that great. And I'm trying to be honest. You know, you got to make sure you don't assume you can beat them. You have to have the mentality to go on that pitch in the Caribbean, even in Central America, and tell them we're here and we're going to move on to the next round. Plain and simple. You have to have that mentality. Because if you don't have that mentality, then, what are you going to do? So that's what needs to be fixed. That's what needs to be better. That's what needs to happen when you're involved in this Champions Cup situation. Now, do I always back the clubs in MLS, either in the USA or Canada? Yeah, I do. I do back them. Why? Because I want to see success from the other two North Zone countries. I want to see Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver. I want to see LAFC, the Galaxy. I want to see Nashville. I want to see, all American clubs that are going to go out there and prove to everyone finally that we will win the Champions Cup again, since the Sounders did. We have to find ways to make it better. And for once, I would love to see two MLS clubs in the final. I would also like to see the final held on American soil, now that it's a one-match final. It's always going to be about who can hold their nerve and who can do things better. Plain and simple. Because if we're not going to get that, then, what's the point of being in this cup competition? And Mexican clubs will always be the champions of this tournament. And now we have the Club World Cup in an expanded situation. What does that do for MLS clubs? Are they going to be in there? Are they going to consistently be in there one of these years? We don't know. We got lucky with LAFC. We got lucky with the Seattle Sounders. We got lucky with Inter Miami, even though we all know they probably shouldn't have been in it. But hey, what are you going to do? Because they were the Supporters Shield winners, and FIFA recognized that, which they shouldn't have, all because they wanted Messi in the tournament. We all know this. But hey, what are you going to do? This is what the situation called for. Great show for you tonight. Unfortunately, my only guest tonight, Mr. Michael Martinez of the Cascadia FC, just contacted me as something has come up. An emergency has popped up, and obviously, hopefully no one is hurt severely. Wish him well and whoever it is. But I hope all is well with Michael and his family. But, we're going to go ahead and talk about the Sounders. And, That match was really crazy and wild down at the Universitario for Tigres. And even though I think that the Sounders survived it and only coughed up 2 goals, you know what? It's not like, what the Galaxy had to face, and we'll get to them obviously in a moment. Big look at that penalty kick save there on Angel Carrera. And it really looked like the Sounders were going to be lucky, maybe, uh, you know, find a better second half. Unfortunately, though, Azil Herrera made it 1-0 in the 51st minute. And then, unfortunately for Jackson Reagan later on, an own goal into his own net. And that made it 2-0. And unfortunately, that's all she wrote for the Sounders in the first leg. They do come back next week at Lumen Field, and hopefully they will find a way to get back into that tie and put themselves in a great position. The next one we're going to do is, and we'll go ahead and talk about LA Galaxy on the road at Toluca. And, what a match this was. Obviously, for the Galaxy, you're down 1-0 early, 2-0 before halftime, even though I screwed that up, didn't I? Wow. Sorry about that, folks. That's my bad on the thing. Gabriel Peck made it 2-1 in the 66th minute. Paulino Diaz got his second goal for the 73rd minute. Then Marco Royce made it 3-2. And Paulino Diaz makes it a hat trick, 4-2 on aggregate in the first leg. But for the Galaxy, they survive for the second leg at home because of the 2 away goals that they scored. Once again, it was Edwin Cirillo with the yellow card, Peck and Royce with the goals. So that's my fault on the Chiron. That's my bad. I apologize about that. And, for the Galaxy, that's important to get those away goals because it keeps them in the tie so that if they score 2 and they hold off Toluca, you can win this thing 2-0. You have the aggregate leveled at 4, but you win on away goals 2-0. And then you move on to the semifinals. So the Galaxy are still in it. They just got to go back home. They have to find a way to get those goals. A major, major moment for them to try and stay inside the Champions Cup. But if they can't, and, they can't score those 2 goals, or if they get those 3 goals, because, if they get 3 goals, then Toluca needs to score 4. Period. They have to score 4 if they get 3 goals. If they level the match on aggregate and take the lead on away goals, then Toluca needs to score 3 to take the whole series. So that is going to be huge for the LA Galaxy. That's going to be something special coming up for them. And then let's talk about, obviously, LAFC. That was a clinic. That was an absolute clinic by LAFC as they took out Cruz Azul 3-0. I'm telling you right now, the way Cruz Azul played last year in the Champions Cup, they were tremendous. They were amazing. They really were. They were just amazing to watch. And you see Son with the opening goal. What a freaking goal that was. And how about David Martinez with his 2 goals, 39th minute. I mean, the way he shot it from the near side from that angle was amazing. And then the run he made in the 58th minute in the second half to make it 3-0. They hold off Cruz Azul. Obviously, going down to Mexico is going to be a lot harder for them, and they're going to really have to continue to play the way they've been playing. And I can't believe that they've been unbeaten. They're unbeaten, unbelievable, and all these clean sheets. If I can just double check real quick, if I can just double check real quick their run here in the Champions Cup, because I want to make sure that I get this correct, because obviously They started off with a great start. Yeah, against Real España. They only gave up one goal in the first leg when they were away down in Honduras, 6-1. And then obviously they scored and to make it 7-1 on aggregate at home. And then they went on to take on Mount Pleasant. Of course, that was really not much of a challenge. Of course, from Jamaica, 3-0 in the first leg, 3-0 in the second leg. So 1, 2, 3, now 4 straight matches. They have not given up a goal since the first leg away in Honduras. And they have a 3-0 score line at this point in time with the 3-0 aggregate lead. And now they have the away goals advantage right now. They can get one goal on Cruz Azul. Cruz Azul needs 5. And they may have it in their arsenal. You never know. But, this is where LAFC really has to be on their toes. They really have to be on their game, especially when you go down to Mexico. San Diego FC was able to knock out Pumas, but they couldn't do it against Toluca. And this is where, once again, you really need LAFC to pay attention to where they are, who they play. And let's also not forget, and I want to stress this, the altitude is also big in Mexico. Obviously, in Club Tijuana, where they play, there's no altitude because they're closer to the American border, to the state of California. So that's why they probably didn't have any issues. Red Bulls doing it, being in not having altitude against them. But once again, the altitude in Mexico is not a joke. It is an absolute killer because they're used to it down there. Sure, Colorado Rapids play in altitude as well, but it's not the level where, let's just say, it is in Mexico. And it's a lot worse in La Paz and Bolivia as well. Altitude and being used to the altitude, is much better for these clubs at Liga MX to get the job done. This is what happens. There's nothing you can say or do about it because this is where they play. It's not about cheating. It's about know your area of where you're playing. Get used to the altitude as quickly as possible and go out there and perform at your best. That's all you can say, and that's all you can do. And then, of course, the last one that we're going to show you, not much happened, obviously. Great action, great match, but unfortunately no goals for Nashville SC and Club America. And, give Club America a lot of credit. They were frustrating Nashville. They put them on their heels a little bit. And they were looking to get the draw. And that's why I say that tactically, Mexican clubs are better. It doesn't matter if it's in a league setting or an international club tournament setting. These clubs within CONCACAF will be better. And if we don't improve ourselves tactics-wise, and it's not just tactics, it's also belief. It's in the belief that you can go down there and you can knock every single club in front of you from Liga MX out of this Champions Cup, and you can finally hoist the trophy. But once again, they are better at their tactical display. And look, it's not that I'm upset with how MLS does it, but MLS needs to understand they must get rid of all these stupid acronyms, the stupid designation for what type of money you're spending, the stupid designated player rule, the stupid discovery player rule. All of these things need to be thrown out the window. And as I've said many, many times, whether on my old audio or on my current video streaming pod, if MLS would slowly give up one of the things that made them so successful to keep them around, whether it be the GAM or the TAM or the DP or the discovery player rule, or this rule, that rule, the under 22 player, the under 23 player rule for signing for the roster regulations and all that stuff. If they would just get rid of the stupidity of all of this, then I would say they would be more consistent in winning the Champions Cup than what we're seeing from clubs in Mexico. That's what I want to see. It's a two-way situation here. The league's got to give up on some things so that the players can be better. Whether they're from the academies of all these MLS clubs, or they're going to come over on a transfer from clubs in Europe or Africa or Asia or even, South America, even in Central America, the Caribbean. You never know. You never know what can happen if you can get rid of these stupid, archaic roster rules. And then maybe, just maybe, everything will be much better. And that's why I keep saying, when are we going to be a big boy league? Some say we are, but for those of us, and including myself, when are we going to become a big boy league? We're not all the way there yet, We're not. And it's not to say I'm, crapping on MLS. I'm happy we have MLS. I'm happy we have the USL leagues. I'm happy we have professional leagues that are going to go out there and dominate, not only from within, but hopefully out there as well on the international club scene. But until we can get there, let us attempt to remove the stupidity of the acronyms for these roster rules that continue to make us look foolish and stupid. It's time to be a big boy league, like what the Premier League is, like what La Liga is, like what the Bundesliga is, and like what Italy's Serie A is. Look, I know it's not going to happen overnight. It won't happen overnight. That I know. But for the sake of saying, well, we are going to be one of the better countries for the game across the world, we're only going to get there if we get rid of the archaic roster rules. That's it. Infrastructure is coming. Stadiums are being built for the game. More needs to happen in the lower leagues. But once again, when you have that part done, the other part should come into play. And when it does, we'll be much better. But until that does happen, we'll still be stuck where we are. Now, we obviously, once again, we are going to the international calendar next year, late 2027. Obviously, we'll have that sprint season first. But still, there are good times and positive vibes coming. But the positive vibes will continue on until Major League Soccer and the USL leagues actually come together, end the soccer wars, peace between the leagues, and we can finally say we are a real soccer nation. We are at that point, but you want to get over the hump? That's what has to happen. That's it. I want success. Club-wise, national team-wise, within our great land. But until we get there, hey, there's only so much you can say or do. There's only so much you can hope for. But look, this is what it is, unfortunately. This is where we are at this moment. And, it's going well. It can be better, and it should be better. But until we get there, we're never going to go anywhere. And, what we need to see are the Sounders, more than just the Sounders. We need to see the Red Bulls. We need to see LAFC. We need to see the Union. We need to see Atlanta United. We need to see Minnesota United FC. We need to see FC Dallas, Houston Dynamo, and so on and so on and so on. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what the situation will be. And until then, this is where we are right now. And hopefully LA Galaxy turns it around for the second leg. Hopefully Nashville can go down to the Estadio Azteca and finally upset Club America. Hopefully we will see LAFC pile it on Cruz Azul. And of course, let's not forget, let's hope the Seattle Sounders can turn it around at Lumen Field and convert some goals and prevent that away goal by Tigres. This is going to be it's going to be difficult. I'm not going to lie to you. It's going to be difficult. These clubs know it. But the hope is they can go out there and they can wave the flags, 2 flags. The flag of MLS, the flag of U.S. soccer, and actually the third flag of the United States of America, American soccer. That is what's on the line. American pride. That our club, granted, not everyone's American on the club, but it's still an American club. And we need you guys that are supporting your clubs to go out there. Either you're hosting the second leg or you're traveling down to Mexico for the second leg. Fill up that away supporters section and root like hell for the boys when they're down in Mexico, or fill up your stadium where the games are going to be played in MLS and hope they do reverse the tides and take over the aggregate, because we need a lot of support. They need your support, and hopefully they're the ones that are going to finally do it. I want to see hopefully 2 MLS clubs in the final. And if not, get one of the 2 in there and hopefully do the job. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be my show for tonight. I know it's a quick one, unfortunately, because of the disappearance, unfortunately, of my guest who had an emergency. I had to take care of it, unfortunately. And hopefully we'll have him back on next week. We'll try to get more guests on next week. Another regular Four Scenes Fire American Soccer show this coming Monday. Don't forget, Open Cup round 3 matches this coming Tuesday, Wednesday. And then next week will be the quarterfinals, second leg review show for the CONCACAF Champions Cup. And then the following week, we'll have Open Cup review and another regular Four Scenes Fire American Soccer show for 2 weeks from now. My name is Daniel Feuerstein. Thank you very much for watching me tonight. And as always, please, 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 please enjoy your football. Thank you. Take care. So long. Have a good night. And bye-bye for now.